Right, okay. Jai Saparika Sri Sri Guru Goranga Radha Sham Sundar Hari Jiv Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribraj Jagaracharya Vadyasta Saraswata Sri Srimath Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribraj Jagaracharya Vadyasta Saraswata Sri Srimath Kuruchuramani Sava Shastra Siddhantyalit Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Rupanuga Ki Jai. Harinama Sankirtan Ki Jai. Jai Gaura Premanandi. So now beginning our first Wednesday evening Prapanna jivanamrtam class, which we hope to do every Wednesday evening to study this great scripture. Srila Govinda Maharaj says this should be studied daily as Srimad Bhagavad Gita is studied daily. So this is the, you can say, seminal work of Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj on the process of Sharanagati. So before we begin, of course, if you don't know the book, this is Prapanna jivanamrtam in English. It was first published in Bengali, and the full cost of its publishing was paid for by Bhavantari Devi, who most devotees know as Pishima, the sister of Srila Prabhupada A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Prabhupada, his sister, on the behest of Prabhupada, who was a prehester when it was published. She was wealthy lady, and she paid for the publication of Prapanna jivanamrtam in Bengali, and it was translated into English back in, actually there were two translations. The original translation, which was called Ambrosia, what was it called? Ambrosia of the Surrendered Souls or something like that. But sadly, it was the whole actual text of the book was missing from that original, because we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, but in a few minutes. But basically, the translator of that first edition, it was quite a small edition, thought that Guru Maharaj's introductory shlokas before the verses from the scripture, thought they were just repetition, so missed them all out. But actually, they're the real property of the book. They're the actual, if you'll forgive the expression, the meat of the book. So, anyway, Guru Maharaj was not displeased. He said, something is better than nothing. So that was the first edition, and the second edition, which was published in 1987, came out in a very nice way. It was translated by Bhaktiananda Sagar Maharaj at that time, and the devotees are very fond of this book, and Srila Govinda Maharaj also very much loves this book. It was published 5,000 copies, and we still have lots of them, so if anyone doesn't have it, they should get it. Srila Govinda Maharaj said it should be studied daily. So first of all, we can understand what was the background to the publishing of the book. that inspired Guru Maharaj to publish Prapanna jivanamrtam. Prapanna jivanamrtam. Prapanna means surrender to God. Ramanujacharya used this word a lot, Prapanna, and he said to be a devotee of the Lord, one must possess the quality of Prapanna, surrender to the Lord, or in other words, they must be Prapati. Prapati means who is surrendered to the Lord. So, and many of the things within Prapanna jivanamrtam are from Ramanuja's own book, or inspired by Ramanuja's own book, which was called Prapanamritam. And so, after the disappearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, without going into too much detail, we know that the mission that he began, the Gaudiya Math, it fell into all kinds of quarrels and litigations and difficulties, let's say, which isn't always the case when the great Acharya leaves the world. Then often their mission becomes disturbed because they don't have that great soul at the helm any longer. So anyway, after some time, Srila Sridhar Maharaj and many of his godbrothers, they decided they couldn't remain within the institution any longer. And Guru Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he decided that he wanted to live alone and just practice his bhajan life and study of the scripture and not keep company with anybody, because he didn't want to become involved with the arguments and the controversies that were taking place at that time. So then he, as a very deep thinking Vaishnava, he thought, if I'm going to live alone without any association of my godbrothers, then what is it that is the one necessity in the life of a devotee? And he said, well, I thought very long and hard about this and studied and prayed, and finally the conclusion was that the most important thing in the life of a devotee is Sharanagati. So Sharanagati means the process of surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord. And so he compiled this book, Prapanna jivanamrtam, the life nectar of the surrendered souls, positive and progressive immortality. And you can say, Srila Govinda Maharaj considers that it is an eternal scripture manifest through Srila Guru Maharaj. And if you are actually really interested in Sharanagati, if you're really interested in devotion, then this is the book for you. So, who knows? Who can say what the 6 limbs of Sharanagati are? Chandraprabhu?
To accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
To reject everything unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. To have firm faith that Lord Krishna will protect us. And to accept Lord Krishna as our guardian. And to full self-surrender. And then surrender and humility.
Correct. This is correct. So, there you are. These are what are considered to be the 6 limbs of devotion or Sharanagati. And the book Prapanna jivanamrtam is basically divided into these 6 subjects. Of all of them, Guru Maharaj said that central to all of them is accepting the Lord as one's guardian. And this is central. All the others follow from that. This is the most central thing. So Guru Maharaj compiled this book, or composed this book, And that's actually one of the, I think, fundamental, you could say, misunderstandings that the devotees have about Prapanna jivanamrtam, that they think it's Srila Sridhar Maharaj's compilation of verses about Sharanagati, but it's not. It's not that. And also I think, I mean, I've heard even senior devotees of our mission saying that the verses, or the small, you can say, how would you say, preface or to each verse that's being quoted, they're like Guru Maharaj's introduction to that verse. It is not correct. It's actually the other way around. And this is like quite essential to being able to understanding how to study Prapanna jivanamrtam. Because the statements that Guru Maharaj makes that is Prapanna jivanamrtam. And the verses are the scriptural evidence that support those statements. So Guru Maharaj is making some statement about Sharanagati, like whatever it may be. Souls surrendered unto the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Dev, bathed in the ocean of divine love. This is, I've just taken that randomly. So this is what Guru Maharaj wants to tell. This is a point of Sharanagati that Guru Maharaj wants to explain. And to illustrate that and to prove that to be so, he is given a verse from the scripture or expression from some great Vaishnava which supports that. Once you understand that that's how Srila Sridhar Maharaj has structured it, then you'll be able to understand Prapanna jivanamrtam much better. So like I say, our first translator, he concluded that all of those prefaces to these verses was just repetition and not necessary, so deleted all of those, and then it just became a collection of verses from the scripture explaining those, the concepts, but the concept was missing now. The context for those verses missing, and also just also copying and pasting, you can say, before copying and pasting, but literally taking from someone else's translation of that verse and pasting that in there, where that may not be Guru Maharaj's reading of that verse. So basically the whole thing was more or less lost for its original intention. So Sagar Maharaj did a very nice job of a very beautiful presentation of everything. It's perhaps a little wordy, which was the way he translated things, but at least you get a very nice, I think, a very nice overall feeling of the book and what it means. And maybe one day it'd be done again in a more simple, perhaps, way, you can say. But what we have at the moment, I think, is very nice. And if we can study that, Srila Govinda Maharaj says that Sharanagati, we need to become Sharanagata, or as Ramanuja says, Prapati. So that means surrender to the Lord. But just saying you're surrendered to the Lord doesn't make one surrender to the Lord. So we are always singing in the songs, Sharanilam, means I'm surrendered. But we're not, are we? We're not. There's Sharanilam, and the next minute we're off doing something else. I'm surrendered to the Lord. But we aspire to be surrendered to the Lord. That's our hope and our goal. And so Srila Govinda Maharaj says, then you have to cultivate that, you have to discuss that and study that regularly. It doesn't just happen. It's actually like a sadhana to practice surrender to the Lord. Surrender means like giving your full dependence. We know from those six limbs of surrender. we understand what actually Sharanagati is. So it begins with acceptance of the favourable. What is favourable to Krishna consciousness? So we've also been discussing that in our classes about Upadesh Amrita. Acceptance of the favourable, rejection of the unfavourable. These are all, like conscious things that we must do in our life. Because what you associate with, you become that. So if you associate with things which are favourable to Krishna consciousness, you'll become Krishna conscious. And if you associate with things that are unfavourable to Krishna consciousness, things, ideas, people that are unfavourable to Krishna consciousness, you'll become a non-devotee. So you become what you associate with. Association doesn't just mean in the physical sense, but in the literal or spiritual sense of how we give ourselves to the vibration and the ideas that are being generated in this world. So we should try to avoid the vibration of this material world and give our attention to the vibration which is coming from the spiritual world. And that's always coming in the form of the divine teachings as shown by their own practice and by their lives and by their own teachings from the sadhu Vaishnavas. Those who are Prapati, Prapanna, Sharanagatas, surrendered to the Lord. I think, and I may be entirely wrong, it's maybe just my speculation, but I think the English word property comes from that word prapati. It means to belong, the idea is we are the property of our Lord. We belong to Him. So who belongs to the Lord and no one else can have any claim over them? They're called property. So, with that in mind, we'll begin our discussion of Prapanna jivanamrtam.
How many volumes is it on the volume?
Just one volume. And with 10 chapters. The 10 chapters. Prapanna jivanamrtam. So Prapanna means those who are property, those who are surrendered. Jiva, we know, means the soul, the living beings. Amritam. Amritam means nectar, or the nectar of immortality, or as they put in the first translation, ambrosia. It means Amrita means like the nectar of the gods, like literally, and that the search for Amritam or eternal life in the spiritual sense is only available to those who are property or prapanna or sharanagatas, those who are surrendered to the Lord. Those who are surrendered to the Lord, they receive that nectar. So Prapanna jivanamrtam, the life nectar of the surrendered souls. So this was composed by Srila Bhakti Rakak Sripad Devashis Prabhu. We begin with that. Preface. Translated from the publisher's note of the first Bengali edition. And that was published in 1944. So, the best introduction to the author of this book is given by the work itself. Pujapad, Paribrajacharya Tridandi Swami, Srimad Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Maharaj, is the fit recipient of the grace bestowed upon him by that great universal Guru, who shines like the sun among the Gaudiya Acharyas on Vishnupad, Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada now left this world to join the eternal divine pastimes, is the divine agent to flood the world with the nectarian universal preaching of the glory of the Supreme Lord, in the divine succession of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although the devotional community is well acquainted with the illustrious personality of His Holiness B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, I may nonetheless take the opportunity to enumerate some of his glories herein for my self-purification. The brilliance of his unprecedented scholarship is found in the artful compilation and harmony of Sri Prapanna jivanamrtam, life nectar of the surrendered souls, accurately drawn from the axiomatic teachings of pure devotion, Bhaktisiddhanta Vani, as evolved by the Vaishnava preceptors in the line of the bona fide scriptures. We have already seen the extraordinary competence of His Holiness in preaching the beautiful illuminating conceptions of the kings of transcendental scholars, the Vaishnava preceptors headed by Sri Rupa, Sri Sanatan and Sri Jiva, in various languages throughout the whole of India. Upon reading the first Sanskrit poem composed by His Holiness Sri Bhaktivinoda Viraha Dasakam, our Divine Master commented that the writing was of a happy style. Srila Prabhupada profusely praised the devotional gravity of the presentation, revealing his deep satisfaction and joyful confidence that in times to come the message of Sri Chaitanya Dev would be befittingly upheld and preached by the author. Just prior to his entrance into his eternal pastimes, Srila Prabhupada, in preference to hearing devotional prayer, kirtan, performed by devotees recognized for their expertise, called for His Holiness pure rendering of Sri Rupa Manjari Pada Se Mora Sampada, the worshipful prayer of the Gaudiya Vaishnava's most cherished ideal. The theme of Life Nectar of the Surrendered Souls is described in the introductory first chapter, Prelude to Approaching Nectar. In some instances throughout the work, the Bengali verse interpretation of the venerated pure devotees has been fittingly given for the translation of the authentic stanzas quoted. In words of nectar from the devotees, statements of the Supreme Lord have occasionally been quoted in confirmation with the development of the theme. In his explanatory aphorisms that precede each stanza, the author reveals the unique axiomatic truth Siddhanta of his divine succession. Doubtlessly, the good readers who know the supereminence of the Gaudiya Siddhanta, the axiomatic devotional teachings in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will be overjoyed with His Holiness's novel illuminations. In the epilogue, the author has mentioned his line of divine succession and the time and place of the writing of the book. It has been vividly illustrated herein that a life without surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna is utterly futile, and the most treasured perfection achieved through exclusive surrender has been revealed. This will especially encourage those who are aspiring to enter the land of devotion, drawing them onward to the lotus feet of Sri Hari, and it will infuse spiritual joy and exhilaration in the hearts of the established devotees. This book is the supreme wealth of the surrendered souls. Devotion for the Supreme Lord Sri Hari Bhakti is the singular quintessence in this world, and only by exclusive surrender, Sharanagati, is it happily attained. May this life nectar of the surrendered souls graciously appear all over the world, distributing the ever-increasing aspiration to reach the abode of divine ecstasy, the lotus feet of Sri Hari. Just as the repeated rubbing of sandalwood produces more and more charming fragrance, we remain confident that the faithful devotees whose only pleasure is in conclusive theological truth, Sat Siddhanta, will experience the ambrosial devotional fragrance of this holy treatise in their spiritual discussions, and thus relish transcendental delight, we shall consider ourselves blessed when this book inevitably comes to be treasured by the august assembly of the fortunate souls. On the holy anniversary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada's departure, Gaurabda 457, 14th of January 1944, at Sri Dham Navadvip, a Vaishnava's servant, Sri Nrsingananda Brahmachari. So that's very nice. All glory to the Divine Master and the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Sri Sri Prapanna jivanamrtam. Publisher's note. Sri Sri Prapanna jivanamrtam, the life nectar of the surrendered souls, is the crown jewel of divine literatures as the eternal elixir of life for the exclusively surrendered souls, the bestower of that perpetual relish of full-fledged nectar, and the awakening and sustaining fountainhead of life in divine consorthood. Indeed, who can fittingly portray her holy glory and renown? In the same way, we cannot but feel ever inadequate when we attempt to sing the glories of the illustrious author, our most worshipful Divine Master, Om Vishnupad, Sri Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, the dear most intimate attendant of the great pioneer, preeminent among the Gaudiya Acharyas, Sri Gauranga's transcendental message incarnate, Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur. Even without world itinerary, the seat of universal Guru, Jagat Guru, of the world's renowned Gurus, has been gracefully won by Srila Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, while presiding in the grand noble distinction of his venerable years of devotional life at the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math of Navadvip, his exclusive personal holy place of bhajan. Since its first publishing, which was in Bengali, this sublime literature has brought heartfelt satisfaction to the stalwart devotees of the highest order, being hailed by them as an essential scripture to be unfailingly sung and cultivated as a daily devotional function in spiritual life, as is customarily practiced with the holy scriptures such as Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In both the eastern and western countries, its English publication will doubtlessly be similarly worshipped with the utmost reverence, constantly studied and sung with devotion by the surrendered souls of fine theistic intellect, and by noble souls engaged in their divine search for the Supreme Lord. This monumental work was originally composed in the Sanskrit language. The authentic Bengali translation that was sanctioned by the author is extremely developed, profoundly exploring the heart of the book. Scholars who know the internal conclusive scriptural purports can alone realize how difficult is its translation and publication into English. However, by the boundless mercy of the most magnanimous Supreme Lord, Sri Chaitanya Chandra, the fountainhead of all incarnations of Godhead, and by the causeless grace of his most beloved, our Divine Master, and the pure devotees whose hearts are absorbed in divine love, this formidable task has now been fulfilled. Thus I again and again worship the holy lotus feet of them all, for their tireless efforts to usher in the advent of the present edition in its perfectly elegant form, all those God brothers and God sisters who served in the various facets of the publication have attained the unending graces of our Divine Master and the Vaishnavas. They have bound us in eternal gratitude. For executing the task of the English translations, proofing and editing, special mention is due to Tridandi Swami Sripad Bhakti Ananda Sagar Maharaj, assisted by Sriman Nimai Sundar Brahmachari Vidya Binod, and for their dedicated effort in securing the necessary funds and assistance for the printing and publishing of the work in a most dignified presentation. Special mention is due to Sripad Dayadha Gauranga Das Brahmachari Bhakti Prabhakar Prabhu, and all the good devotees assisting him. In conclusion, invoking the charming verse of Sri Guru Prapanna, this humble servant earnestly prays at his holy lotus feet that this crown jewel of sacred writings, Sri Sri Prapanna jivanamrtam, may remain with her merciful presence in every land, in every home, and in every heart. And in her gracious acquiescence, may she acknowledge the glorious victory of her goodwill by churning and overflooding the entire living universe with her supramundane wave of ecstatic love, to bless all souls with the supreme good fortune. Sri Srimad Bhagavat Padambuja Madhu Swadhotsava Satpadaya Nikipita Madhu Bindavascha Parito Brashta Mukat Gunjita Jatnai Kinchid Iharitam Nija Parasreyo Itina Tammaya Bhuyo Bhuya Ito Rajangsis Pada Sam Langani Te Shambaje. The bees, intoxicated in the festival of drinking the honey of the Lord's lotus feet, busily humming the glories of the Lord. Drops of honey from their mouths fall and scatter all around. For my divine prospect, I carefully collected some of those drops herein, and thus I do worship the dust of the holy lotus feet of those saints again and again. 16th of October 1987, the 93rd Holy Appearance Day of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Rakak Sri Dadev Goswami Maharaj. I beg to remain most humbly Tridandi Bhikkhu Sri Bhakti Sundar Govinda. This divine book was prepared and presented to the lotus hands of the venerable author by his disciples and aspiring servitors in the celebrated appearance day of Lord Gaurachandra Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 3rd of March 1988. So, the foreword to the book is particularly beautiful. The foreword is not from the Bengali or the original book. When this was translated into English, Srila Sridhar Maharaj was asked if he would like to dictate the foreword to the book, and this is the lecture that he gave that became the foreword of the book. Specifically, he spoke it for this purpose, and that was in the 1988 or around there, perhaps before then. Maybe it says, but specifically for the English edition. And that is. No, it doesn't say the date when that was done, but it took some years for it to be completed. And Srila Guru Maharaj spoke this specifically to be published in the English edition. All glory to the Divine Master and the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Forward. Many devotees have published this forward as an article in various magazines and periodicals, because it is a very perfect summary, you can say, of the Siddhanta of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very complete and perfect in itself. Because the soul is a particle of consciousness, it is endowed with free will. Eliminating free will, only gross matter remains. Without independence, the soul could not progress from bondage to liberation, and his ultimate salvation would have been impossible. But his spirit of exploitation is a foreign force, an intoxicant, a miscalculation that surrounds his independence. Life's objectives may be scientifically analyzed as threefold: exploitation, renunciation, and dedication. The most common tendency is in those engaged in exploiting other persons, species, or elements for mundane sense enjoyment. They desire to materially elevate themselves in the present environment, and thus they are described as elevationists. A more sober class discover the severe, equal, and opposite reactions to worldly pursuits, and they engage in renunciation of the world in search of an equilibrium comparable to a deep, dreamless slumber. By being unawake to the world, they hope to escape its concomitant reactions and sufferings. Thus their goal is liberation. And they are known as salvationists or liberationists. But through the correct interpretations of the revealed scriptures by learned votaries such as Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Ramanuja, the devotees of divinity know the pursuits of both exploitation and renunciation as not only fruitless but injurious to real progress. The normal, wholesome, and happy plane is in the life of dedication. Without exploiting or borrowing anything from the environment, and without attempting to artificially renounce it, one who is sincere to dedicate himself naturally comes into contact with a higher and more subtle plane of life. By his readiness to give and serve, he will attain to a higher society and achieve an appropriate master. The enjoying spirit forces one to be associated with a lower section to control and enjoy, and the renouncing spirit allures even the scholars with its prestigious superiority over exploitation. Thus, it is more dangerous, just as a half-truth is more dangerous than falsehood. As it is difficult to awaken someone from the deepest possible sleep, the liberationists may remain for incalculable time within their cell of non-differentiated liberation. But the higher existence will invite the service of one who desires to purely dedicate himself without remuneration. Seva, service, dedication is the summum bonum of the teachings of the Vaishnava school, the third plane of life, where every unit is a dedicating member in an organic whole. In such a normal adjustment, everyone mutually assists one another in their service to the center, the highest recipient, the highest entity. Everything is existing to satisfy him, because he must possess this qualification to be the Absolute. He is the prime cause of all causes, and everything exists for him to satisfy him. A barren conception of mere deathlessness cannot afford us any knowledge of a positive thing, but only freedom from the negative side. If immortality means no influence of mortality, what then is its positive conception? What will be the nature, movement, and progress of that which is immortal? Without this understanding, immortality is only an abstract idea. Because it does not appear to exhibit the symptoms of death, stone would be more immortal than human beings, and conscious entities would be mortal, forever denied immortality. So what then is the positive conception of immortality? How are the immortal immortal? What is the positive reality in immortality? How can one become immortal? One must search out his intrinsic location in the universal order. It will not do to attempt to solve only the negative side of life, which is full of suffering, birth, death, infirmity, and disease. We should know that there exists a conception of life worth living for. This positive side has been almost totally neglected in general religious views. The immortality professed by the schools of Buddha and Shankaracharya yield no positive life. Their goals are Mahanirvana and Brahma Sayuja, respectively. The Buddhist theory is that after liberation, nothing remains. They crave absolute extinction of material existence, prakriti nirvana. And the Shankarite monist theory of liberation is to lose one's individuality by becoming one with the non-differentiated aspect of the Absolute. That is, they crave extinction in Brahman, Brahma Nirvana. They postulate that when the triad of seer, seen and seeing, drashta, drishya, darshan, or knower, knowable and knowledge, gyata, gyeya and gyan, culminate at one point, the triad is destroyed, triputi vinasha, and nothing remains. Material action and reaction ceases in Viraja, the river of passivity, which is located at the uppermost edge of the illusory Mayic world. And above Viraja is the destination of the Shankarites, the Abshisha stage, or the non-differentiated plane of Brahman, called Brahmalok, which is located at the lowest edge of the spiritual realm. Both are vague areas of negative immortality. Brahmalok is a marginal or buffer state, midway between the material and spiritual worlds. Composed of innumerable souls, it is an immortal plane devoid of specific variegatedness, or nirvishesh. It possesses positivity only in the sense that it is a plane of existence, a background, kashta, but in itself it lacks positive development of variegated existence, or kala. The nature of the background is oneness, and development woven over it necessitates plurality of a differentiated nature, kala kashtadi rupena parinama pradayini, from the Chandi Markandeya Purana. In the Bhagavad Gita, mutable kara and immutable akara existences are described, representing the personal and the impersonal, the development and the basis, or differentiated and non-differentiated conceptions of general existence. The mutable is represented by the multitude of embodied living beings, while the immutable aspect is the great expanse of the all-accommodating Absolute, the Brahman. In the analysis of worldly action, the most subtle form of unfructified past action prior to the present tendency, the seedling stage to sin, has been defined as unknowable, indistinct, and of untraceable origin. The immutable Brahman aspect of the Absolute is similarly defined as being one-dimensional, undetectable, unspecific, and of no definite colour, sound, or taste, an unknown and unknowable and understandable stage of existence, Kutta. But the Supreme Lord Krishna is above both the mutable and immutable existences, and thus his glories are sung throughout the Vedas and in the world as the Purushottama, the Supreme Personality. Sri Shukadev Goswami affirms that in the most remote and distant plane, Lord Krishna is to be found. Everywhere is he, the fountainhead of all conceptions. Vidura Kashtaya. He cannot be eliminated. Thus, the immortality of the impersonalistic schools, such as Buddhists, Shankarites, etc., offers no positive life. But in Vaishnavism, immortality is positive, dynamic existence. Above the non-differentiated Brahman aspect of the Absolute, the transcendental variegated existence begins in the first glimpse of the spiritual sky, the plane known as Parabhyam. Situated there in the spiritual plane is the positive kingdom of God. Firstly Vaikuntha, then Ayodhya, Dwaraka, Mathura, and finally, above all, Goloka. Transcending the vague areas of negative immortality that the impersonalists aspire for, the devoted, the Vaishnavas dedicate themselves in the life of eternal devotional service to the Supreme Lord of the transcendental realm. Although the soul can maladopt himself to a fallen state of existence in the planes of exploitation and renunciation, he is inherently adoptable to the positive life in the kingdom of God, and fully blossomed he reaches the realm of Goloka. Sharupe Sahara Haya Goloketisti Sri Sri Krishnera Astutara Satana. Sri Prapanna jivanamrtam. Amrita means undying or nectar, and jivana means life. Positive immortality is possible only for the surrendered, Prapananam. All others are necessarily mortal. Only those who have wholly given themselves to the center are living in eternality. Surrender is fully established in its excellence and its constant position. Yet there is variegatedness within that constancy in the form of progressive movement or pastimes, vilas. The Supreme Absolute Personality, being infinitely superior to both the mutable mortals and the immutable, immortal, negative Brahman. Only the Swarup-Siddha souls, those who are perfectly established in their divine relationship with him, are eternally freed from the disease of mutation and mortality. Swarupena Vyavastita. With a broad vision, we must know ourselves as created of smaller stuff, and thus only with assistance from above can we improve our situation and achieve a position in the higher plane. A submissive, serving attitude is necessary in us. If we submit, the universal dictatorial aspect of the Absolute will take us upward to a higher prospect. He is the autocrat, the absolute knowledge, the absolute good. Everything about him is absolute. Being in a vulnerable position as we experience in this world, why then should we not submit to him? The road to the sphere of transcendence and Hoksaja is the deductive or descending method, Avaroha Panta. We can reach the absolute good, the absolute will, by his consent alone. Only by faith in absolute surrender is anyone allowed entry into that domain, never by exploration, by colonization, or by attempting to become a monarch there. No inductive or ascending method, Arohapanta, such as renunciation or yoga, etc., can compel him to accept us. Whosoever he chooses can alone reach him. Although the highest point of the renunciates is desirelessness or freedom from possessiveness, the surrendered soul, the Sharanagata, is naturally desireless, akinchana. Detachment is only the negative side of surrender, and above selflessness, the devotee surrenders himself to the higher substance, and this is to be awake in another world, another plane of life. Such is the positive Vaishnava conception of life, to determine one's real self beyond the jurisdiction of the world of misconception. The nature of the progressive substance is eternal existence, knowledge, and beauty, Satchidananda, the one harmonizing organic whole, Advai Gyan Tattva, contains all similarities and differences, held inconceivably in the hand of the Absolute, Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. And there is no anarchy in the absolute power. Nonetheless, mercy is found to be above justice. Above judiciousness, the supreme position is held by love, sympathy, and beauty. I am the absolute power, but I am friendly to you all. Knowing this, you need never fear. Bhagavad Gita 5:29. This revelation relieves us of all apprehension. We are not victims of a chaotic environment, but it is judicious, considerate, and the ultimate dispenser is our friend. Sri Jiva Goswami has stated that of the 6 symptoms of surrender, to embrace the guardianship of the Lord, Goptripte Bharanam, is central. since total surrender expresses the same ideal. The remaining 5 symptoms of accepting the favourable, rejecting the unfavourable, faith in the Lord's protection, full self-surrender, and humility are natural contributing associate servitors to the ideal. Angangi Behidha Sadbidha Tatra Goptripte Baranam Evangi Sharanagati Sabdena Kartyat Anyani Twangani Tat Parikartavat. From Bhakti Sandarbha. Surrender is the foundation of the world of devotion. It is the very life and essence. One cannot enter into that domain without surrender. It must be present in every form of service, and to attempt divine service without it will be mere imitation or a lifeless formality. The entire gist of the Vedic instruction is to dedicate oneself to the service of the Lord. In his commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Sri Sripad has stated that only if the practices of devotion are initially offered to the Supreme Lord can they be recognized as devotion. To attempt to execute them and then subsequently offer them cannot be pure devotion. Itti nava lakshanam jasya sa aditena ched bhagavati vishnu bhakti kriyate sa charpitaiva shati jada kriyeta natu krita shakti paschad arpet. Without surrender, the activity will be adulterated with exploitation, renunciation, artificial meditation, karma, gyan, yoga, and so on. By constitution, the soul is the Lord's servant, and the Lord has the right to make or mar, to do anything according to his sweet will. If accepting this truth, we undertake the devotional practices such as hearing, chanting, remembering, and worshipping, only then will our activity be devotional. Only the activity of the self-dedicated soul can be devotion. Sincere prayer will help us to seek the help of the Lord. But again, prayer in the spirit of surrender can alone reach him. The path of devotion entails increasing our negative status to invite the positive to descend and embrace us. I am very low, and you are so high. You can purify me, take me and utilize me for your higher purpose. Be pleased, otherwise I am helpless, neglected. It is impossible to take him captive in the cage of our knowledge. Only the way of devotion can help us. In every respect, he is high, great, and infinite, and we are similarly small. His mercy, his sympathy, love, and grace are the only medium through which we can come together. And good faith is autonomous in that sweet land which is so high that we will earnestly hope and pray for the association of the higher existence as his slave. And that also will be our happy prospect for the future. Krishna is not within our purview, and thus we are always recommended by the scriptures and saints to approach the bona fide divine master and Vaishnavas. To satisfy the Supreme Lord, the criteria is to satisfy our Gurudev. If Gurudev is dissatisfied with us, the Lord is surely dissatisfied. An analogy has been cited in the scriptures where the Lord is compared to the sun, the Guru to a pond, and the disciple to a lotus flower. If the pond withdraws, the very sun will scorch and dry up the lotus, and the lotus will be cheered by the sun as long as the water supports and surrounds it. Jasya prasada bhagavat prasado, jasya aprashadam, nagati kutopi, jayam stuvam tasya yasastri sandhyam, bande guru sri charanadavindam. I bow down to the lotus feet of Sri Gurudev. By his grace we achieve the grace of Krishna. Without his grace we are lost. Therefore, at daybreak, noon, and evening, we meditate upon and sing the glories of Sri Gurudev and pray for his mercy. The Vaishnava Guru's dealings with the disciple are all grace, and his grace is his will to extend his wealth to the disciple. His instruction is the medium of asserting that will, which is service for the satisfaction of the Lord. And by service we invite his grace. By an earnest desire to serve, we draw his sympathy and his willing extension of goodwill to encourage us in our relationship with the Supreme Entity. Firstly, surrender. We must offer him exclusive respect, pranipat. Otherwise we shall not allow ourselves to approach him. Secondly, we may make our sincere and substantial inquiry, pariprashna. In a surrendered spirit, we may hear our Divine Master's messages, which he delivers to us from his venerated seat, the Vyasasana. In that conducive setting, the proper inspiration and dictation may fortuitously come down to us, and finally to render service, sevaya, enables us to taste the essence. On the instruction of his Gurudev, Devarshi Narad, Vyasadeva had to undergo a progressive development. Narad is established in non-calculative devotion, Gyan Shunya Bhakti, or Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Parama. And above Narad is Uddhav, who is established in exclusive divine love for Krishna, Premaika Nishta, until one reaches Goloka, where there is full-fledged Krishna conception. All other stages may be changeable. There is no further change when one is firmly established in his serving relationship with the original Lord, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. In the narrative of Brihad Bhagavatamritam, Gopakumar passes through Vaikuntha, Ayodhya, Mathura, Dwarka, and then he finally arrives in Vrindavan. There his particular divine relationship with the Lord firmly culminates in friendship, Sakya Rasa. For him the previous stages were passing, although for others a permanent relationship may occur in one of them. They are progressive stages of positive immortality. On the banks of the Godavari River, in progressively deeper and deeper planes, the entirety of theological development was expressed in the conversation between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Ramananda Rai. A positive hierarchy of divine relationships with the Lord exists in progressive stages for the various types of devotees, karmibhya, karkrit, etc. Each type having its characteristic central relationship, Vaikuntha Viveki Nakha, in the divine realm. The depth and degree of surrender may also be measured according to the science of mellows or rasa tattva, peacefulness, servitorship, friendship, parenthood and consorthood, shanta, dasya, sakya, vatsalya and madhura rasa are the natural divisions, each consisting of a finer layer. And higher than even the direct consorthood of the Godhead is the most elevated of the entire compass of devotional services, the divine service of the supreme predominated moiety, Sri Radhadasya. According to the intensity of surrender to the point of no return, the quality of the magnitude of truth encountered may be measured. The inner sweetness of the truth and its infinite characteristic attract the devotees' hearts to the highest degree, so much that they never feel any satisfaction of achievement in what is actually the acme of their highest fortune. In Vaikuntha, only peacefulness and servitorship are present, with a hint of friendship. If we commit the offence of giving more attention to law than to love, we will be cast down from Goloka to Vaikuntha. Goloka is the land of love, and there the inhabitants know nothing more. And by love is meant self-sacrifice and self-forgetfulness for the service of Krishna, without a care for one's good or bad fortune, total risk in the extreme. In his Bhakti Sandarbha, Sri Jiva Goswami defines Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as more than Lord Narayan of Vaikuntha, the most powerful in all phases. Above that, his existence, appearance, and nature attracts everyone to serve him, love him, and even die for him. Vajaniya Guna Vishishta. His qualification is so beautiful. Thus, the highest conception of the Godhead is the Krishna conception, and he can be known by the devotees in Krishna consciousness. Those who serve and worship the Supreme Lord according to the scriptural regulations and calculation belong to the category of Vaikuntha worship. In Vaikuntha, in the initial transcendental conscious conception at Hoksaja, the Godhead as Lord Narayan accepts reverential service in his majestic dignity. But the devotees of the highest order are exclusively surrendered to the service of Lord Krishna with their innermost love and faith. The Krishna conception of Goloka Vrindavan is corroborated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the greatest interpretation of the Vedic scriptures. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is known to be Krishna himself, united with his highest potency, Sri Radha. Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya Dev has clearly revealed that the genuine interpretation and purpose of all the revealed scriptures is to faithfully guide us to the higher goal, the domain of love and unconditional surrender, and to the central power of truth personified in Lord Krishna as beauty and affection. Not power, but affection is the highest force to attract us all. Consciously or unconsciously, the absolute position is held by love and affection, and love is superior to all power and knowledge. It is the real fulfillment of the inner heart. Our inner existence wants only love, beauty, and affection, neither knowledge nor power. The finite cannot capture the infinite, but the infinite can make himself known to the finite. And when the infinite appears as a member of the finite land, the highest gain of the finite is achieved. Krishna carries his father's shoes, and he cries when chastised by his mother. Through love, the absolute comes down to the finite. The infinite's most intimate approach to the finite is found in Vrindavan. The infinite comes to embrace the finite in its fullest capacity, a prakrita, mixing with finite things so closely that people cannot perceive the Lord's transcendental, godly character as the divinity. We, the infinitesimal souls, can attain our greatest fortune when the infinite comes to us in his highest approach, as if he were one of us. His approach is so merciful, so great, so intimate, and so perfect. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is sweetness and magnanimity combined, openly announced that we are all natural slaves of the highest entity. But this is slavery to the great force of love and beauty. It is the greatest fortune to be utilized in any way by the absolute existence, knowledge, and beauty, to be in harmony with the highest center. No one is forced or barred, but this is the soul's intrinsic nature. Faithfully in the divine succession, from Nityalila Pravishna Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Astotarashata, Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, especially inspired by the divine message of Srila Thakur Bhaktivinod's Sharanagati, and attending the authentic Gaudiya Vaishnava literatures, such as Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas and Bhakti Sandarbha, as well as the writings of other authorized divine successions, such as the Ramanuja Sampradaya. This Sri Sri Prapanna jivanamrtam has been compiled in order to supply the devotee's spiritual sustenance and nourishment. Surrender is the indispensable necessity in the life of a devotee, and life nectar of the surrendered souls will sustain and fortify the surrendered souls as the nectar in the lives of positive and progressive immortality. All right. So, clear about that then?
The 6 points of surrender, as Gurudev is the representation of Krishna, those 6 points are meant to be directed towards Gurudev, yeah?
Of course.
Okay.
We have to understand what Gurudev is, or who Gurudev is. If we just identify Guru with a figure, a person, we'll be deceived. Guru is Krishna. Guru is Krishna. When Guru Maharaj explains that the living being, us, the jiva, we are searching after the absolute. And the Lord wants to extend His grace to us. Where the Lord extends His grace and where the jivas attempt, where they meet, that is called Sri Guru. So Guru usually comes in the form of a person, a Vaishnava. That is Mahanta Guru. But there is also Chaita Guru. Chaita Guru means the Lord living in the heart. But because we cannot connect with the Chaita Guru, because our ego and our mind, we mistakenly think that the mind and the ego is the Chaita Guru. We can't depend on that. In fact, we should be highly suspicious about that, of our own self. Because we have a tendency, one of the failings of the living being, the jiva, is the tendency for self-deception. It's huge. We formulate some position in the world and then we deceive ourselves into thinking that that's our proper place and that's like God given duty or something like that. So, and we can tell ourselves in so many ways that this is the case. But sometimes we hear the Chaita Guru. And usually it's in response to something coming from the Mahanta Guru. The Chaita Guru, you can say, is the inner voice which says yes. You know, all of us have had that, right? That when we've come in connection with the Krishna conception, in whatever format it may be, through getting a book from the devotee in the street, or hearing the truth from the sadhus, or whichever way it may be, something inside of us chimes with that and says, yes, this is real, this is true. That's something which is beyond our cultural or religious background. Because, some people, like many of you, have been born as Hindus and maybe as Vaishnavas also, and understand the Krishna conception. And many of us may also not be that. Like I was raised as a Christian, but it didn't really chime with me, all of the teaching of that. But when I came in touch with the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, then something spoke to me from there. Yes, this is a higher truth. So that's the Chaita Guru. You can say the voice of the inner heart. So if we can rely on that voice, but we can't always rely on our hearing that voice. Sometimes we can mistake our mind and our prejudices, acquired prejudice, acquired misconception, ego, and so many other things. We think that is the Chaita Guru speaking to us, but we don't know that. So we should be suspicious of that. I'll tell you one kind of amusing story that illustrates that. There was a girl, and she's not around as far as I know with the devotees anymore, but she lived in Sweden, and she wrote to me and said, I'm a disciple of Govinda Maharaj, and I've heard some of your talks, and I'd like to come to England. Will you be my guru? And I said, well, Govinda Maharaj is your guru, but if you come to London, I'll try and help you as much as I can in your spiritual life. So she came, and she's a nice girl, a little eccentric. But one day she came and she said, she was very upset, really upset. And she said, I need to talk to you urgently. Okay, so we went in the room and she starts crying, like really crying, like all liquid coming out of her nose, and like she's really upset. I said, okay, so what's the problem? She said, I can't understand that when Gurudev appears to me in my dreams, why he tells me different things to what my Gurudev tells me when I meet him face to face. They're like completely different. Why is that? I can't accommodate it. So I said, well, that's because they're dreams. And you can't rely on a dream to give you spiritual instruction. Not that Krishna can't appear in your dream. That it is possible, of course. He can do anything. But she said, even Krishna and Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, they all come to her in her dreams and they give her instruction. But when she meets Gurudev face to face, he tells her like completely opposite, or I said, well, don't listen to the dreams, listen to Gurudev who's in front of you. But she couldn't accommodate that at all, So this is my point, is that we can mistake, visions and dreams and all these things to be the Lord speaking to us. But if that contradicts what the sadhu, what the guru, and what the Vaishnavas say to us face to face, we should dismiss it. I mean, I dreamt about Sri Sri Maharaj once, right? That he was living in a tree house in Greenwich Park, right? And no one could go into the tree house, but you could go and see him from under the tree and speak to him. And I went there one day and I'm speaking, and he said, "Who's there?" And I said, "It's Devashis." He said, "Devashis Prabhu, which is better, Wilkinson's sword or Gillette? Which is the better razor?" So what should I think? Should I think, what's Gurudev trying to tell me? Or is it just that it's a dream, right? I live near Greenwich Park, I'm thinking about Gurudev, maybe I'm thinking like which razor I should buy, and that all comes together in some crazy dream. Yeah? So, not to dismiss that sometimes Guru can appear in the devotee's dream, Krishna can appear in a devotee's dream, but we shouldn't think that Guru is just a figure, just some person, or he appears as the Mahanta Guru, as the Vaishnava. But Guru Maharaj said, what is the Guru? Guru is the inspired side of the Vaishnava. The inspired side. And that's the side that we should mark. And that is Krishna himself. Krishna appears in that way to distribute himself to us. So we're recommended that real devotion to Krishna is devotion to Guru and Vaishnava. By serving Guru and Vaishnava, we serve Krishna. And without the service of Guru and Vaishnava, our service to Krishna will just be imagination. It won't be real. Because Krishna is very far away from us. Actually, we can say, like philosophically, Krishna is closer to us than anyone. But, as Srila Govinda Maharaj would often say, between us and Krishna is a Himalaya of ego, separating us from Krishna. If we demolish that ego, we'll see Krishna face to face, we'll hear Krishna face to face. But ego means identity. A Greek word that means identity, like who you are. So we all look in the mirror and think, that's who I am. We all think, we are the person from our family, from our education, from our upbringing, from the things that have come together, that have influenced us in this life, and lives and lives and lives before, that's who we are. But actually, it's not who we are. It's a misconceived idea of who we are. And the job, you can say, of Guru is to strip away those misconceptions until we can actually see who we are. So that mountain of ego that separates us from Krishna, we have to deal with that. We can't just say, oh, I've got this mountain of ego between me and Krishna, then, you know, I can't have any relationship with Krishna. No, the whole purpose of Krishna consciousness is to develop a relationship with Krishna. And we do that through Guru and Vaishnava. It's a simple thing. And we can understand it by a mundane analogy. That if you want to have some relationship with, you know, the Queen, you have to go through a minister. You can't go directly. You can't go and stand outside Buckingham Palace and, you know, like shout up, Liz, are you there? Can we have a little chat? Because before you know it, the police will be there carting you away, won't they? Or, you know, some men in white coats will be taking you to a padded cell. So, and that's just the Queen. Who is she? She's just some woman, right? But Krishna, we think, oh, we can have some direct relationship with him. We can buy some picture of Krishna, or, you know, buy some murti of Krishna, and we can have some direct relationship with him. But it's actually imagination. So Guru Maharaj would say that is more important, the I is more important than the deity. That means that to develop the proper vision of who is Krishna, who are we, what is Maya, what is the world, what is our relation, that's all called Sambandha Gyan. And that is necessary knowledge of who we are and what is our relationship with the Lord and what is our relationship with everybody else. And all of that comes to fruition through the practice and cultivation of Sharanagati. Until there's Sharanagati, it's just a philosophy. It's just a theory, right? We just talk about it. But the reality is experienced through the practice of Sharanagati. You have to actually do it. You can't just talk. Just talking about it isn't enough. So when it says, you know, to accept the favourable, we have to search out what's favourable to Krishna consciousness. To reject the unfavourable, we have to find out. That we can find out very easily, because most things are unfavourable to Krishna consciousness. And we should reject that. And we should be confident in the Lord's protection, that the Lord will protect us. Whatever happens, He's got our best interest in heart. And then accepting Him as our guardian. That means through Guru and Vaishnava, we will understand what is necessary for us to do to attain Krishna consciousness. And then full self-surrender, that means to leave everything, or as Krishna says, Sarva Dharmam Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja Aham Tam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishami Masucha. Everybody knows that verse and everybody can quote that verse, but what does it mean? Sarva Dharmam. It means all your other dharmas, leave it. All the worship of gods and goddesses, leave that. Forget it. Just surrender to me. Just worship me, Krishna said. And don't think, and not just that, not just your religious dharma, but everything that you consider to be your responsibility in this material world, you can leave that for Krishna. But it has to be for Krishna. Just, you know, like, are you have to ask yourself, am I running away from my responsibilities in the world, or am I running towards Krishna? They're not the same thing. Running towards Krishna is acceptable. And in so doing, you may leave everything. But just running to get away from the burden of everything in this material world, that's not acceptable. We should accept whatever is in our front as the will of the Lord. And embrace that. And at the same time try to practice surrender to Krishna. Surrender to Krishna means not rejecting what comes in front of you, but trying to understand what is that thing or that connection with Krishna. How is that connected with Lord Krishna? how is this related to Krishna's desire and satisfaction? So this is all necessary for us, and necessary full self-surrender and humility. Of course, humility necessarily comes as a byproduct of all of those things. Not that we think, well, I'm a devotee of Krishna and become arrogant. Sometimes that happens.
How can Krishna, Guru can lead you to Krishna? So
Because Guru, actually the principle of Guru is Krishna.
yes, he is a Krishna, but
So then you can say, if you submissively hear and then act on the instructions of Sri Guru, you'll come to Krishna. You'll awaken in the serving realm of Krishna. You'll find yourself in a higher environment. Naturally, it'll just happen like that without any other endeavor. Won't be necessary to do that. But it is necessary that not just to hear, but then yeah, but then to act. Srila Govinda Maharaj said when he was in New York, and one famous pundit from ISKCON, he's very famous, original, one of the first devotees of Prabhupada. He came to see Govinda Maharaj, and he's asking Srila Govinda Maharaj, like 3-4 days, many different questions, like high philosophical questions. And after like 3-4 days, Gurudev said, "So, Prabhu, you're satisfied with my answers or not?" And he said, "Very satisfied, Maharaj. I cannot believe what wonderful answers you've given." Then Gurudev said, "Then now what will you do with those answers?" And he looked puzzled. And he said, "Well, you're asking me all these questions and I'm spending my time giving so many answers to you, and you say you're appreciating them. But then if they're actually meaningful to you, you have to come with me. You have to come with me." And then that devotee said, "Oh, Maharaj, I don't have any money, and I can't come, But that wasn't what Gurudev meant. He didn't mean like physically you have to come with me. It meant where I am going, you also have to come there. You have to come there. It's not just for satisfaction of your intellect or your curiosity. Oh, we heard some nectar things from this guru, and then you carry on with your life. No, that should inform your life, and it should change your life. The connection with the sadhu should change your life. You should, where you are now, you should not stay in that complacent situation. You should move forward, move to a higher stage of life. That's what it means that's how Guru will show you Krishna or bring you to Krishna. By acting on his instruction. It is not enough just to sit there and go, like nectar. Well, nectar, Maharaj. And then, when he's gone, you just go back to living as before. No. That's the whole purpose. When we hear from Guru and Vaishnava, we should become inspired to serve Guru and Vaishnava. To move from where we are now to a nearer position. Nearer to the truth. Nearer to divinity. And that should be not just one time, but all the time. We should be trying to improve ourselves all the time.
So when Arjun was talking to Krishna, Krishna did show him that I'm the Virat Rupa and you should do what I...
Yeah, but that was actually just... what was Arjun's... Arjun desired to see the Virat Rupa. He said, "I want to see that." But when Krishna showed it to him, he was terrified. He was absolutely terrified. And the big Maharati warrior Arjun, when he saw Krishna's Virat Roop, he was terrified, and he said, "Please, like, show me the form that I know and I love. You know, this is like freaking me out." You know, no, I mean, he didn't say that, but that's basically what he said. This is like causing me so much distress to see this form. You know, he actually says this is a ghastly form.
Thousand mouths, thousand
Yeah,
noses,
I don't like to see this. Then Krishna then showed him his four-armed form as Narayan, and then his two-armed form as Krishna, and then Arjun is happy again. You know?
But he was qualified
Yes,
because others didn't see.
that's right. That's right.
Why
Only
Arjun
5
only
seconds,
saw?
it came for 5
But that is, you know, actually that is for Krishna to show his authority when he's speaking the Gita, so that nobody is in any doubt as to who he is, who he represents, or what his divinity represents. He shows that Virat Roop, and that's recorded in Bhagavad Gita for us. All that description. When you see that, you cannot be in any doubt that this is Almighty God who's speaking here. He's not just, you know, some prince or, you know, he is God Almighty, and he's showing that form which no one can look upon and continue to live in this world in that way. So then he shows that, and then but after that he tells so many things to Arjuna, so many instructions. But what does he say at the end? Right at the end, he says, "Okay, now I've told you everything. Think and do what you want. Do what you want." He doesn't say you have to. He tells Arjuna you have to fight and all of these things. He said, "But now I've told you all this. Now you think, consider, and then do as you want." So even then, he's not like forcing Arjuna to do anything. You decide. Do you want what you've heard from me? Do you want to follow that, or not? It's up to you. And Arjuna followed that.
Yeah, but he does say if you don't follow what I say, you'll be lost.
Of course. But the Lord says that to all of us all the time, doesn't he? You can follow me, or you can go your own way.
So same thing like when the Karna, where Arjuna, he told to Arjuna,
Yeah.
kill Karna now, other than you cannot kill him.
Yeah. So Krishna's, he never removes our free will, but he always tells us, well, this will be the consequence. If you misuse your free will, you must suffer. It's not a matter of punishment or reward, it's a matter of nature. So if you misuse your free will, you must suffer the consequence. You know, it's like what they say, right? Now they just made, we don't want to talk about this too much because it's not a very pleasant subject, but the United Nations have just made a woman's right to abortion to be a human right, they say. It's a human right for any woman. So, you know, whatever one thinks about that, it is their right. It is a woman's right to do what she wants to do, but she should understand the consequence of that. They say, oh, my body, it's up to me if I want to kill my child. But they should understand what that actually means and what the consequence of that will be. Everyone has free will. You can't, So I agree, yes. It's up to you what you do. But if you do that, you must know what the result of that will be, what the consequence of that will be.
The current reaction.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
What if they don't know?
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You know, the different relationships that a jiva can have with the Lord, it seems you can only have it indirectly because we have to, like you said, we're the servant of our connections to Guru and Vaishnava. We're the servant of the servant, like that. So, because our connection is via Guru and Vaishnava, I'm thinking these different relationships, you can't have a direct relationship as friend or servant, whatever.
Well, you can. I mean, we see that that's what happened with Gopal Kumar, right? Gopakumar, if you read Brihad Bhagavatamritam, right, Gopakumar's guru gives him the Gopal mantra and tells him, meditate on this mantra. And he chants that mantra, and by chanting on that mantra, he goes from the earth to Shivalok, to Vaikuntha, to all these places, all the different planes of existence in this material world. But what happens finally, he comes to Vrindavan, and there's Krishna waiting for him directly. So because Krishna is guru, so his guru is Krishna speaking to him through that person. That doesn't make that person any less. But what your position in the spiritual world is, we do not know that. But Guru and Vaishnava know that. The higher Vaishnava, they know that. But it's not that you can become, Subal or Nanda Maharaj or Mother Jashoda or
that's what I'm saying. Because you're the servant to the servant.
Yeah.
These
So,
positions.
but everybody has, everyone has their master there. It may not be directly with Krishna, like the head of our sampradaya, Rupa Goswami, right? He is considered to be Rupa Manjari in Krishna Lila. So Rupa Manjari, his or her mistress is Lalita Shaki. Lalita Shaki is like her master, if you like. And Lalita is the bosom friend of Radharani, the first of the Ashtashaki. So, but the Manjaris, they can go where the Shakis can't go in the Leela of Krishna. So there's a hierarchy, but it all revolves around Krishna. It's not that those who live in the spiritual world, they never see Krishna, they're just working in the background. Everything they do is centered around Krishna.
I'm saying it's like when we do the offering,
Yeah.
we offer to Krishna through our Gurudev.
Yeah, of course.
We don't
That's what I'm
have a
saying.
direct.
But it's not that that's not possible.
Right.
Krishna can do whatever he wants to do. All rights with him. So maybe, and there's also evidence of that in sometimes someone's rasa may even change within Goloka Vrindavan. We heard from Guru Maharaj, right? That in Lalita Sakhi, her idea or her motivation is to increase the servitors of Srimati Radharani. So one time, one coward boy who's working or serving under Subal Shaka, he's doing some service, and Lalita noticed him, and so impressed with his service that she went to Subal and she says, "I want that boy for our camp, for Radharani's service." Subal says, "Okay," and took that boy, and that boy became a girl and became servitor of Radharani as a girl. So it's not that it's impossible. Everything's possible in Krishna Lila. There is hierarchy and there is all the the method by which we do. But that's it. That's sadhana bhakti. That's how we perform sadhana bhakti. But it doesn't mean that when you get to the spiritual world, it's all a big free for all. Everyone has their master or their mistress, their position, their service, their everything. But Krishna's a despot. He's an autocrat. He can do whatever he likes. He can say, "Oh, well, that one, I want him, or I want her today. I want to spend the day with that one." He can do whatever he likes. And he does. Everything is totally spontaneous. And everything in the spiritual world just revolves around his whim. Whatever his whim is, that must be satisfied. And whoever he wants to satisfy his whim with, he can. So it's all beyond us at this moment. So at this particular stage of our devotion, then we're given some service to do, and we do that. And actually, that's what you can say gets the marks, or gets us noticed, is if you just sincerely and dutifully do your service. Just do your service. And if you do that, you'll get noticed. And we see that, practically we saw that when Srila Govinda Maharaj was here, right? Srila Govinda Maharaj comes here, there's so many people here that we can't fit everybody in. People in the street, you remember, and Gurudev sitting upstairs, and we have to like ask people to go in shifts to sit with him because there's just not enough room for everyone to be there. But there are a few people that would come there and they would just sit there all day in front of Gurudev. Whether he wants them there or not, they don't care. They've got to be there all day. And you would think that they're like our top devotees or something, yeah? And every day they're there. But when Gurudev's not here, you don't see hide nor hair of them. They're not interested. But when Gurudev's there, they're there, you know, like all attention, all there, all the time. But Gurudev's no fool. He sees who is doing the service. And he would see that the devotees who are making everything happen, doing the cooking, doing the puja, doing everything, they've got like maybe 5 minutes to come and offer their obeisance and then go back to their service. But those are the ones that he marks. They're the ones that don't have any time to just sit there all day in front of him. They're making everything happen in the background. And they're the ones that Gurudev marks. Not the one who's just there all day doing nothing. Even sometimes we would say to people, you know, okay, Gurudev used to like to take prasadam alone. And sometimes he would invite some friends to eat with him. But usually he'd take alone. And we'd say, okay, now Gurudev's going to take prasadam. And I heard people saying, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm not going. I'm going to stay here, you know. Even if they say, I'm not going to go, you know. Okay, we can understand. They don't see Gurudev very often, you know, they want his association. But even when that association is like not giving any satisfaction to him, you understand? Like Gurudev was very ill sometimes when he was here. Remember one time when he came here and his heart was enlarged and we had to bring the doctor and everything, and he's in his room and some devotee came and Sri Sri Prapanna was at the door, like guarding the door. And that devotee came with his friends and everything. We just want to go in and make dandavat to Gurudev. And Sri said, oh no, Maharaj is very ill now, not to go. We just want to go and do dandavat. And you know, like he just pushing, and then finally Sri said to him, and what will Gurudev do with your dandavat? Will that make him well? You know, like in what universe will that be? Make him happy or no? Just like forget it. Shruta's like from New York, from the Bronx in New York. He's like, he just puts it on the line, tells it how it is. But that's the point, you see. It's not about us. It's about him. We're trying to satisfy him, and by satisfying him, Krishna is satisfied. So. It's not like a club, you know what I mean? It's not like we're coming to see a celebrity, a pop star or a film star or something, you know, we just want to bask in their aura or something like that. No, we want to come to serve. And if we spend time with Guru and Vaishnava, it should be to get inspiration for that service. And not just like when he's here, but always. Service life should be always, our life, all the time. Today, tomorrow, the next day, and it should be progressive too, as much as possible. So that's what Sharanagati means, that we should try to cultivate that, because we're not, by nature, we're not Sharanagatas. We're like, you know, I can do a bit, and then I have to go and like withdraw for a while and rest up and, you know, put my feet up, have a cup of tea, and you know, maybe I can come back later if I'm not feeling too bad. Okay, that's all right too. That's okay. Because Krishna consciousness comes in, it develops. You know, we are in a particular stage of our spiritual development, and it's not just that we're you know, Mahabhagavat devotees 24 hours a day, and you know, we are who we are, and we are where we are. So not to be ashamed of that, not to be bothered about that, or we should be a little bit bothered about that. We should be thinking, no, I must do more. We should always be thinking we must do more. But you don't want to do so much more that you become crazy. You know, that you can't deal with that. You know, we're not Icarus. You know, when Icarus gets his wings, and in Daedalus, his father says, don't fly too high, because the wax will melt. But you can't resist it, you know, so flies too high, and, you know, so don't go higher than you need to, or than you can like maintain, yeah. Stay within the orbit that is good for you, and then try and progress. And the whole point about Sharanagati is that it's about progress, making progress in spiritual life. Never be complacent and never be satisfied with where you are. You should always think, I need to do more, I need to go higher, I need to go deeper. I need to be sincere. I need to be sincere because, you know, we may be able to convince everybody else of what a great soul we are, you know, and the world may worship us, but He knows everything. He knows what's in your heart. Then you can't fool Him. You can't fool Him, and fooling Him just means fooling yourself. He's never fooled. My friend at work, he told me, he's a Christian. He's a Christian, and he told me, you know, before we have our prayer meeting on the Sunday, before we go into the church, we have a little pre-meeting, right? And because we all pray for the welfare of others. We never pray for anything for ourselves, you know, because we know that's wrong. Oh, that's very good, that's very good. Then he said, so what we do, we have a little meeting beforehand, and I say, so, Prabhu, what is it that you require? You know, and I said, well, you know, I've got my car's not very good, I need a new car, or my daughter's having her exam, you know, so when I go in, I say, oh Lord, please give Surendra Prabhu a new car, help his daughter to pass her exam, and in return, Surendra Prabhu says, oh, please give Devashis whatever it is that he wants. And I say, they do that, and I said, is he fooled by that? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're trying to cheat him, right? Because you know that you shouldn't pray for anything for yourself, so you get your mate to pray for something for you. And is he fooled by that? He said, oh, I never thought of it like that before. So, as Guru Maharaj says here, you know, prayer will help us, but prayer should be in the line of Sharanagati. It shouldn't be, you know, give me health and wealth and a cottage by the sea. Om Jai Jagadisha Hari. It should be, we should pray for the welfare of our soul, not for anything in this world. He knows what you need in this world better than you do. He knows that you don't need to pray for those things. But to pray for Him, give me real connection with you. That should be the line of our prayer. There shouldn't be that, you know, our relationship with Guru and Vaishnava to the exclusion of Krishna. But it should be the ideal of our aspiration to the service of Krishna. We want to be devotees of Lord Krishna. But we see that we are not. We see that we are defective in that. So we want to approach those who are devotees of Krishna and ask them to help us. Like, what is it that you've done, or what is it that's inspired you, that we can become like you, and how you can help us. And not sentimental, you know, oh, you know, Gurudev Ashirvad, you know, like, put your hand on my head, or, you know, okay, but that's not really what it's about, is it? You know, that's all sentimental and external. We're not interested in that. I remember many times I saw then devotees like trying to touch Guru Maharaj's feet, and Guru Maharaj would get very angry with them. Sometimes he allowed it, but most of the time he got very upset. And he would, once he told one lady who like, she grasped his feet, you know, and he said, "You think it is so easy to touch the feet of Guru? It's just a physical thing, you can just do that?" Then she started crying. And Guru Maharaj put his hand on her head. It's okay. And another time I saw, you know, when the one devotee, he just got Harinam, he'd been given his beads and things, and after he bowed down to Guru Maharaj, and he's touching Guru Maharaj's feet, and then Guru Maharaj said, "Make sure you wash your hands before you touch your japamala." So, you know, we're not so interested in just the physical thing. That may be, you know, a sign of respect, or, you know, a cultural thing or whatever, but we're interested in the substance. We're interested in the substance. So we need to know that Guru and Vaishnava are our best path to Krishna. And it's not just that, you know, that we'll use them as a way of like ingratiating ourselves with Krishna, and when we get in with Krishna, we don't care about them anymore. You know? No, it's always that, you know, everyone has their master and everyone has their place in the orbit of Lord Krishna. But it doesn't mean that you'll never get to be with Krishna. That's what it's all about, right? Krishna can give himself to his surrendered souls to their fullest satisfaction, more than you can ever imagine. And how he does that, and in, you know, like in which way that will happen, that'll be his business. His business. So it's not that, you know, like Krishna's off limits, but we should just understand the reality of who Krishna is and who we are. And that it is not so easy to see Krishna. It's not so easy. But we can see the Vaishnava. We can see Gurudev. And we can see through their conduct what it means to live a life surrendered to Krishna. If we can see that, that will inspire us. We can look at the deity of Krishna and imagine so many things. See that sometimes, oh, Krishna was smiling at me today. But, you know, however nice that may be, it's just imagination. It's not real. It's not so easy to see the Lord. That's why Saraswati Thakur says, darshan is through the ear, not through the eye.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
When you have your guru and you become, say, liberated or spiritual, is it you keep the same relationship with the guru? Is it that same person?
Well, this is the point, you see, is not to think that guru is confined to a particular jiva or a particular soul. Guru is a universal principle, right? So they say, someone said, ask Guru Maharaj this question, oh, is it true that the guru doesn't go back to the spiritual world till he liberates all his disciples? And Guru Maharaj said, if that was the case, no guru would ever go to the spiritual world ever in any time in history. It's not that, you know. So that, but the current is there. So, you know, your guru in this life, that person may not be the guru in your next life, but guru is the same. That divine current that's coming from through that person is the same. So you'll recognize your guru in that person. Not that if this is the whole point. If we only think that he's a physical body or a physical person, we'll always be deceived. But it's not that we don't think that person is perfect. You understand?
So what happens to the personality then of the guru? I mean,
They go to Krishna.
you get attached to that personality.
Yeah, but what is that? You know, that's for now, isn't it? The same you'll still have that same relationship in the spiritual world with Guru, because Guru is Krishna. And you may meet that same person who is your master in this world. They may be your master in that world, but they may not be as you remember them. They may not be the old man with the glasses and the walking cane. They may be a cowherd girl now. Then how will you recognize? That's not what it says in my picture. My picture doesn't say a cowherd girl with, it says this old man with glasses, and then you won't be able to recognize, will you? But
if you do recognise you,
That's why.
are you remember?
I don't know what you said.
That's why we don't see the body, we see the soul.
Yeah.
And see how their nature and what they do, and then we recognize, oh, he is soul and such soul. Like when you are comparing, Guru Maharaj and Gurudev, we know who is Guru Maharaj because of his nature and personality, and who is Gurudev. So in spiritual world, if Gurudev is a cowherd girl, then still we will know Gurudev is.
Yeah, that's nice to know, isn't it, that you don't lose that.
Yeah, of course. The relationship with Guru and disciple is eternal. But it may not always manifest in the same physical way as before. And you may have many gurus, even in this life. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj says, Bande Gurum, means I worship the gurus, not just Guru. It's not just like, no, that's my Guru and nobody else. No, where you see that current of divinity flowing, that's your Guru. It may not be the same physical person, but the same the flow of divinity is the same. And if you can recognize that, then you're very fortunate. You're very fortunate, because the more guardians we have, the more gurus that we have, the more blessed we are.
I think the thing of the servant is a more accurate thing than guru. Whoever is serving the Lord, if we serve them, then
Yeah. Even we may not always get frontline service with our Guru, but service to the servants of our Guru. Anyway, a long discussion, first discussion, but that's very nice. And we can begin the actual book, first chapter of the book, from next Wednesday. Hope everybody satisfied as much as possible.
Tomorrow is special day.
And tomorrow is the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Param Guru Maharaj, founder of Gaudiya Math, the Guru of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, the Guru of Srila Bhakti Rakha Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. And we'll be celebrating from the morning his appearance day here at some festival, so if you can come, please come. And tonight we can end here. Jai Sri Sri Prapanna jivanamrtam ki jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Rakha Sridhar Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Vaishnava Brinda ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswata Acharya Brinda ki jai. Srila Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Maharaj ki jai. Samadvaita Vaishnava Mandali ki jai. Harinama Sankirtan ki jai. Nitai Gaura Prema. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Namaha. 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 Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Madhavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Madhavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govindaram Sri Madanam Mohan Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda 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 Jai Rupa Sanatan Mattara Guna 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 Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasara 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 Guna Jai 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 Kuri Chalana Banda 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 Jaha hoite Vignana Shavita Pura 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 Jai Jai Jar Punitara Jai Jai Saparika Sri Sri Guru Garanga Radha Sham Shunda Giridhari Juk